Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Yeah, I didn't even break a sweat. He showed up exactly 1 second before, and you didn't break a sweat either.
Yeah.
That
it's
clock's
9:59.
off. No,
Okay.
that clock's off.
All right, well, says my watch then.
Clock is off.
Okay.
Hello, it's a Wednesday. That's why Chris Potter's here, and that's why I'm here, and I hope that's why you're here. And, well, no, that's not why you're here, because it's Wednesday. Oh, maybe.
It is. No, don't sell us short.
Okay, but it's the 17th of April, because I've gotten used to giving the date. I don't know why. Well, because I guess people archive it. I mean,
oh yeah, that's right.
It's archived. You might want to know what the date is.
That's right.
Who knows?
This broadcast is being beamed out into space right now.
That is correct.
So future civilizations on alien worlds. That's not true. It's not being beamed out into space. You know what is being beamed out into space?
What?
Like reruns of Knight Rider.
Well, I think all...
and the A-Team.
Well, wait. All of the television work I did, which was broadcast, is that still out there?
Probably. Beaming away at 186,000 miles a second. Think about that.
Yeah.
You could be like the first image some alien culture has of us.
I mean, I started...
We could do a lot worse.
Yeah. I started in television when there was no such thing as, obviously, satellite technology. There wasn't Doppler radar. There wasn't even that blue screen behind. There wasn't... there was film, and a lot of it was silent, and you had to edit it.
What do you mean it was silent? You mean like silent film? You're not that old.
Yeah, no. I mean, they would send reporters out with just these little Bell and Howell cameras that didn't do, and yeah, so that'd be for voiceover stuff.
Oh, I see. So you're gonna be like the Greta Garbo of local news or whatever.
I mean, and then you'd have to come back. You'd have to cut scenes. You'd have to hang them up. Then you'd have to splice them together physically. And I mean, that's how long ago it was. So the first time that I was involved in the new technology of being, well, it wasn't the first time, but I was in Florida, in Miami, sent by WTAE to cover something. I think a Penn State bowl game or something. I don't know what the hell it was. And my old Uncle Louie lived down in Miami Beach.
Of course he did.
So I said to Uncle Louie...
Uncle Louie!
I said, Louie, hey, we got this big, huge truck parked outside the Fontainebleau Hotel. I said, you show up there around 6 o'clock. I'll do my little thing. You'll see me do my little thing. And then we can go to dinner. So Uncle Louie does show up at the appointed time, and I'm standing there under a palm tree, and I do my little thing. Well, blah, 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 back here, and, and back to you, Paul, and blah, blah, blah. And Uncle Louie looked totally unimpressed. I remember I was very disappointed. Thought I was going to wow him. So I said, Louie, come on in. Come in the truck. Look at all this stuff. You see that? You see this? You see that? I said, do you realize when I was standing there under that tree, I was being seen at the same time in Pittsburgh? Not here.
Right.
Pittsburgh. That my image and voice were being up into the stratosphere and then down back to the earth and then bang into people's living rooms all over Western Pennsylvania. Do you believe that?
I can't wait to hear what Louie's response was.
We're standing in this truck with all these, gizmos and stuff. And he's looking puzzled, but he said, well, the only thing I want to know is, was that AM or FM? Oh, jeez. AM or FM? Get it.
Seems to me somebody should have been visiting with Uncle Louie a little more often. Everything all right with Uncle Louie?
Oh, no, it never. Uncle Louie was known for malaprops and saying wonderfully. It was a absolutely perfect response from Uncle Louie. He once said to my brother brought a gorgeous blonde, like a 6-foot-tall, Nordic-looking blonde home once from college, and she walks into our family's den. Louis was visiting, and Louis stood up, and he thought he was a tall man, but he wasn't as tall as as this Viking, and he was visibly shaken. But but here's what his first words to her were, and then she was visibly shaking. He held out his hand and said, "Well, and who are you otherwise?"
Excellent.
How do you answer that?
I don't know.
I don't know
great.
either. Yeah, right. Well, whatever.
Who are you otherwise?
Oh, it's good to laugh. We have not been laughing the last few days. So, yeah. Well, before we get into any of that, check this headline out. This is my favorite headline of the day. You may read it.
And it comes to us courtesy of Think Progress. A Texas teacher claims she couldn't have fondled black student because she's racist. That's when you're in trouble.
That's the defense. She was charged with fondling a 7-year-old girl. She's a teacher, and she goes on, her whole thing is she failed the polygraph test, everything, and then she just went on to say that, I don't like blacks. I'm prejudiced. No way would I. Oh, my God.
Well, I mean, I guess you make a calculation, right? Which is worse for you?
What?
Right?
Yeah, right. To be considered a racist.
To be a fondler of children or to be a racist in Texas.
Well, she proudly stood by, I'm a racist.
Yeah.
I couldn't be a pedophile.
Well, you don't have to go onto a national registry as a racist.
No, they couldn't hold them. I mean, that'd be a hell of a registry, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So New Zealand has now become the what country? 14th country in the world to legalize gay marriage. And it follows, there wasn't much of a hub. France just did it recently. I think some, like Uruguay.
Yeah.
I think might have.
Yeah.
And now New Zealand. And, so I guess by the way we do things is we're doing things slowly.
Right.
State by state.
Right. Well,
Unless
I mean,
the Supreme Court says something else.
I mean, I think as long as we're, you want to let those really progressive countries take the lead, like New Zealand, for example.
Well, yeah, right. New Zealand, Uruguay?
Yeah,
I mean, I think it's Uruguay.
Well, the South American countries.
Yeah, right, with their macho culture and their Catholicism.
Yeah, but there's some weirdness that goes on down there. You look at Brazil and some of those places, they have a whole different, different mindset down there.
You're thinking of Rio.
Yeah, I mean, sure.
Well, anyway, this is
didn't the Pope, wasn't he fighting a losing battle against?
Oh, it is Uruguay.
Yeah, same-sex marriage. Yeah, so a lot of that stuff.
And here's what's wonderful. So this was in the Parliament there, and upon passage of the bill, the entire gallery broke out into singing a traditional New Zealand love song. Well, isn't that nice?
Yeah, that's nice.
Okay. But here...
I'd sort of be curious to know what a New Zealand love song sounds like.
Well, actually, I have...
Do they have some lyrics?
I have some lyrics. I have written you a letter and enclosed with it my ring. If your people should see it, then the trouble will begin.
Uh-oh. My
poor pen is broken. My paper is spent. But my love
This is getting pretty Freudian here. Go ahead. Yep.
Jeez.
My pen is broken.
My paper is spent.
My paper
but my
is...
love for you endures and remains forevermore.
Aw, it didn't even rhyme.
Well, maybe it does.
Terrible love song. Oh, is it? It was in.
Maybe in some native tongue.
Maybe.
No.
Maybe
they speak something that appears to be English in New Zealand.
Yeah, it appears to be English. It's where the hobbits are from. So there you go. Yeah.
Okay. And just for one more outrageous story, that
Yes.
these are all true.
Okay. I believe everything that's said on this show. So.
New Hampshire lawmaker calls all women vaginas.
Like by accident or just as a matter of habit?
And he has refused to backtrack. He has said, having a fairly well-educated mind, I do not need self-appointed wardens to A, try to put words in my mouth, B, turn a well-founded strategy in communication into an insulting accusation. And finally, if you find the noun vagina insulting or in some way offensive, then perhaps a better exercise might be for you to examine your own psyche.
What was the context in which he said it the first time?
The context is so bizarre. It was during debate on the floor of the New Hampshire House. On a stand your ground bill.
Oh, mm-hmm.
Which is the,
oh dear.
shoot anybody who's making you nervous bill. Which is, as you know, very popular among some folks.
Right.
Okay, so I don't quite get it. Somebody must have said something. They were talking about how fight or flight, and they were talking about how flight, guys, you can leave, It's like what you would say to that jerk Zimmerman about hey, leave! So he seems to be responding to some flight references that other people had done, that had given other legislators. So that'll explain why we end up in the bowels of Amsterdam.
Oh, no.
Okay. Wait. Here it is. You asked context.
I did.
Here it is.
Hold myself to blame.
So this is New Hampshire State Representative Peter Hansen, Republican. There were two critical ingredients missing in the illustrious stories purporting to demonstrate the practical side of retreat. Not that retreat may not be possible, mind you. What could possibly be missing from those factual tales of successful retreat in Vermont and Germany and the bowels of Amsterdam? Why? Children and vaginas, of course. While the tales relate the actions of a solitary male, the outcome cannot relate to similar situations where children and women are the potential victims. He used women the second time around, but he called women vaginas the first time around.
Is he saying that women can't run? Is that essentially what he's trying to say? So they have to shoot somebody?
I guess. He has one more sentence. The presence of one or both ingredients demands that a potential totally different outcome might have prevailed. He's saying if there had been a child present or a woman present, those guys might not have made it out of the bowels of Amsterdam. Children and vaginas can't run.
That sounds like the title of Gloria Steinem's biography or something. Vaginas can't run.
That bumper sticker. These colors don't. No.
Yeah,
run.
These colors don't run.
Don't run.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you got to follow up now. Vaginas don't run.
Does he think there's some sort of foot binding going on in our culture?
I don't know.
Does he wish there was some foot binding going on?
And of course, all hell broke loose, and he refuses to know. He's sticking by his
naturally.
His gun.
Well, he's not going to retreat.
That is correct.
Even though he was a solitary male. So
now
there you go.
maybe, Well, a solitary male could possibly outrun the perp, but a vagina wouldn't have a chance.
Man.
You know.
I mean, that's what you count on a state legislature for, right?
You listen, increasingly, you can count on our congressional, national. Okay, so that said, did you see all the joy and celebration about the fact that Toomey and Manchin came together, and everybody was acting as if, you know, the most glorious victory had occurred when the Senate agreed to allow their little compromise measure to even show its face on the floor of the illustrious Senate of the United States. Mm-hmm. And now we are being told that although the vote has yet to be taken, it ain't going to pass.
Yeah, in fact, there's I'll be sitting in on a telephone press conference with Toomey a little later this morning.
After it fails?
So we'll see how that goes. Look, what did the president ask for? A vote. So there you go. That was our big ask, and we'll get a vote, and I'm sure many of these officials will be happy to
look
put
at what had
themselves
to
on the
be
side
done
of the
to
NRA.
get a damn
Yeah,
vote.
I know, but still. Yep. Well,
and
I mean,
everybody acting like this is some kind of glorious day. Give me a break, as I was heard to say at another venue. I mean, the bar has been set so damn low for what we applaud these jerks for doing.
Right.
Oh, they showed up for work! Yay!
I think the best response I've seen so far is from Chris Murphy, who's the senator from Connecticut, where of course Newtown happened, and he said, "I didn't think my colleagues would turn their backs on 90% of America," referring to the number of Americans who support a universal background check, and he said, "I was naive."
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Isn't that something?
Yeah. Yep. Well, now you know who it's been if nothing else, it's been so long since the NRA has really been challenged, and I think people have kind of forgotten just what heavyweights they are, and I think you're about to see a demonstration.
I don't think it's as much what heavyweights they are. It's what spineless, craven, unprincipled bastards are serving, supposedly, we the people in Washington, D.C. You know, I'm wondering if half these jerks, you know, when that USA chant breaks out at, sporting event, USA, which also always sounds like this. It doesn't sound like I'm proud of my country. Yeah. It sounds like fuck you.
Usually it's in the context of shutting somebody up too.
Right. Yeah. So I'm really thinking that a lot of these people, including most of the Republican Party, would be every bit as into it and full voiced if they were simply saying NRA, right? I pledge allegiance, right? Who are you pledging allegiance to? The NRA.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I guess maybe I've just
given up.
Yeah, I mean, well, as you know, I think I was always pretty skeptical, from the outside. I'm actually kind of surprised it got as far as it did, so I can't say I'm terribly shocked by this. I mean, the bright side is when you look at the demographics, who owns all these guns? It's an aging population, who's been running out and buying them, and they're listening to the same people who are listening to Fox all the time and all of that stuff. And, eventually, maybe we just have to wait this fever out.
Oh, look at this. Ray writes, I love Amsterdam and have visited often, but would be hard-pressed to pick out what part is the bowels.
Other portions of the anatomy would be easier to identify.
Well, I'm assuming it would be, it occurred to me, too. I would think it would be like the subways or the sewers. And then I'm thinking, Amsterdam is sitting, if you go even 2 inches down, you're in the water. So do they even have bowels?
They must have a sewer system, right?
Yeah.
You've been there, haven't you?
Yes, but, like I went to the Anne Frank house and the museums. I didn't go into the sewers.
Right.
Generally. And I did.
But if there were above-ground sewers, you probably would have noticed.
I don't know. And, of course, I popped into one of those marijuana places.
Sure, of course you did.
Yeah.
Naturally. Maybe the bowels of Amsterdam or the financial district.
Actually, I sent my sister in.
To get it.
Yeah,
I thought you had to smoke it on the premises. You can do takeout?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that. I thought you had to smoke it like there. See, I've never been, so I don't know.
Well, whatever.
Get a takeout.
I don't know, the bowels of Amsterdam.
I think it was a painting by Van Gogh, actually.
Well, yeah, there's lots of paintings by Van Gogh.
Yeah.
Did you say it right? Van Gogh.
I took German for a few years. I can make a guttural sound if called upon.
Okay.
I just thought it would be snooty to do.
Well, you know me.
Oh, yeah. Always going for the highbrow.
That's right. I'm such an elitist. Oh, Potter. I'm avoiding Boston, but we'll get to it eventually.
Okay.
What, your paper came out today?
As far as I know, that was the plan anyway.
Feels very thick, heavy in my hands.
Oh, thank you.
And what is...
Thanks, baby.
Yeah, what's in here?
Well, we, so this is, we kind of have a special content this week, which is, it's sort of in time for Earth Day, which is next week.
This is a tree hugger special out
today.
It is.
It's like, what things could Pittsburgh do as a community
to be green
to actually to either better weather the coming globally warmed climate, and B, to minimize our contribution to it. So we looked at a variety of things that could be done in terms of building construction, in terms of transit solutions, in terms of how we handle increasing amounts of rainfall and things like that that are likely to be
cool.
part of it. Yeah. So the idea was that these would all be things that Pittsburgh could do in and of itself, because clearly we're never going to get any action from the federal government. And what people just do as individuals, screwing in light bulbs or putting in more insulation is not enough.
Okay, but I have so many people. It's amazing how many I bumped into. Even progressive people who say, I don't recycle, and I'm not going to stop. They love the fireplace. I'm not going to stop. I say, this is all bad, stop doing that. And they say, look, when China stops spewing, God knows what, I'll stop burning wood in my fireplace.
That's ridiculous.
And I say, that's right. I said, nothing starts, no progress is made unless you, individuals, take action. And your excuse for not taking action can't be that person isn't.
Right.
But they say, but... we're talking about the atmosphere. So even though I stop and everybody else is still doing it, I'm just depriving myself and nothing really gets accomplished.
Yeah, I understand where they're coming from. I think it's a ridiculously short-sighted and selfish way to look at things.
I agree, it's selfish.
I think if we have values, we're obliged to try as best we can to live by them, and not having, I have a fireplace, we use it once a year now, maybe twice. And that's it.
And you do that because you know it's, or you just don't.
Part of the reason.
You just don't like cleaning up.
No, I don't have a problem cleaning up. There's a lot of things I try not to do, and I wouldn't hold myself out as a model of environmental perfection or whatever. That would probably be my arts editor, Bill O'Driscoll. But I think people are. But the idea of sort of not everybody else is going to do it is a cop out, because everybody's saying the same about you. The people in China are saying, why should we clean up? The people in the United States
exactly. So everybody gets a pass.
Everybody gets a pass.
Hey, go ahead. Hi.
Hey guys, it's PJ from Greensburg.
Hi, PJ.
What's up, PJ?
Hi, I wanted to. Well, first, the burning a fireplace isn't that bad of a deal.
I don't know about that.
Well, I mean, it's particulate matter, but it's large particulate matter. It's not old carbon.
I take it you have a fireplace, which you burn.
I do, but I don't burn it unless my power goes out.
Oh, see?
So, okay, that's okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, there are people in the winter who literally, they gather, but they also have central heat. They don't need it for heat.
No, the point I'm getting at with a fireplace is that, yes, it does add particulate, which is not a good thing.
Right. Yeah, no, it's
not.
But
it's not as bad as a coal-fired
But that's always the case. There's always something that's worse.
But it's short-cycle carbon, so it's carbon that hasn't been buried for millions of years.
Yes, that's also true.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not such a bad thing.
Yeah, that's
I am currently reading, and this will give you a little bit of a psyche into how much of a geek I am, The Dutch and Their Delta, Living Below Sea Level.
Huh.
Oh, no, I think that'd be fascinating to see how the Dutch are so far out in front of dealing with encroaching waters. And you would think that every politician on the East Coast of the United States would be reading this book and others like it.
So what's up with the sewers?
And I was feverishly flipping through the back of it and trying to find the chapters on sewage.
Yeah. What's the answer?
Well, they have a sewage. They do have a sewage system, but their problem right now is one of the things they're dealing with is that is the houseboats, because they have a lot of floating houses.
Right.
And getting the sewage from the floating houses into the sewage system.
What do they do?
They pipe it in, but they're trying to eliminate the floating houses. They're making more floating houses, but they're trying to do it in a way so that it's not such individual. Like it's more of a community, floating community, rather than individual boats.
Yeah, probably if they were smart, they'd put the whole country on floats, and then they wouldn't have to worry.
To some degree, it kind of is.
It sort of is. But when you're in the city and you're walking down, there's often water, on all sides of you, and there are and those waterways, of course, are used by. Like, you take water taxis here and there, but also on the sides, there are houseboats that people are living in. They're such a part of the. I was blown away because there was one houseboat right near where we were staying that had marijuana plants all over the back deck. They were just growing so happy there. Anyway, well, thank you. I completely.
One more thing.
Sure.
Real quick, I was reading your new Greening Pittsburgh article this morning, and it's something that's been bothering me for a while. I'm thinking about doing a Kickstarter to get this going, but Pittsburgh needs to do a program where they challenge maybe students from Carnegie Mellon to put electrical turbines on the rivers. And start developing the rivers as a source of power for Pittsburgh. Talk about truly greening the city and greening in a way that's a large grid rather than each individual place having.
Right.
And I know a lot of people say, well, there's not enough pressure. There's actually, here's another geek term for you, it's called low head pressure. You don't have to have a huge dam behind the new turbines to actually generate enough electricity to make it affordable. So I think, and Bill Peduto has the commercial out for his mayoral campaign where it shows the little graphics of the solar panels on top of the buildings. Right. But I really think somebody needs to challenge the CMU students to design a electrical turbine system for the city.
I think that's great.
I think PJ's referring to it's actually the piece I wrote. One of the little interesting missed opportunities is the Pittsburgh Water and Sewer Authority, which of course pumps and treats the water that most of the city relies on, is located essentially a stone's throw away from the dam at Highland Park. People who drive over the bridge or whatever know exactly where that is. Right. That dam, there's no reason that dam could not be hooked up to be a hydroelectric provider of energy. And in fact, the authority has looked at that in the past, and the cost is really steep. But you got to figure the authority spends, I think, about $5 million a year just on electricity. It's one of the biggest greenhouse contributors in municipal government, and they've got a solution that's literally just outside the door, and they haven't been able to take advantage of it. So
are you saying they spend $5 million on just their own electrical use?
Yeah, that's the number Pat Dowd, obviously water's really heavy, as anybody who goes backpacking and has had to carry it around knows. Sure. And so the cost of pumping that and treating it and moving it through pipes is a significant part of their budget.
Okay.
Wow. Okay. Well. Okay.
Thanks,
great.
PJ.
Thanks, guys.
Great call. Thank you. I think we have to.
Now we have to go to
We have to take a break. Yes. Right. We do. We shall return rather quickly.
Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com or call Lynn at 412-316-3381. Lynn Cullen Live will return in a moment.
War changed you. In 1941, as Poland was being invaded by other sovereign forces, one village in Poland was the site of unspeakable horror. As Russian and German forces pressed in, almost all of the Jews in the village were tortured and killed. For decades, the crime was blamed on the Nazis. More recent evidence suggests the villagers themselves may have committed the atrocity. PICT presents Our Class by Tadeusz Słobojenik and an English version by Ryan Craig. Our Class is an unforgettable theater experience. Through May 4th, visit picttheater.org for tickets. That's picttheater.org. PICT performs at the Stephen Foster Memorial at the University of Pittsburgh.
This week's Pittsburgh City Paper is available now. Pick up one today for our inaugural travel guide magazine. Plus, anything goes. Fletch, and a look at how green is the Burgh compared to other cities. Pittsburgh City Paper available at over 1,700 locations throughout western Pennsylvania and on the web at pghcitypaper.com and on your smartphone at citypapermobile.com.
Now, it's back to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com.
Boom, boom, boom.
All right, we are returned. So,
Boom, 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 boom.
I don't know. I talked about Boston the other day. You want to say anything?
I doubt I'd have any more to say
Than
than
any
you probably
has
have
already
had.
been said.
Yeah, I will say, as I tweeted the other day, I mean, City Paper has not reported a single thing about Boston, but I still feel like we've been beating the New York Post on the story.
What is the Post has been particularly outrageous, haven't they?
It's totally misstated the number of dead at the outset. They
fingered that Saudi victim.
Yeah. As a suspect.
And then Fox picked right up on it.
Yes, so did some
all those injured people and one guy who somebody tackled him because they said he didn't look right. Yeah. Unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to blame those folks. They were in a state of high emotional stress or whatever. But when you're a reporter, when you're a journalistic outlet, you're supposed to exercise a modicum of discretion. There's the Onion had just a great piece on those guys by Cole, supposedly an op-ed by Cole Allen, who's the editor of the New York Post, and it was like, at a time of tragedy like this, how can we dwell on such minor concerns as how many people died and what it is that actually happened? These are not the time for those sorts of questions. So just amazing.
So you look at what in the Post, of course, owned by Rupert Murdoch, Fox News. Rupert Murdoch, dear Lord.
And just all the usual suspects. Pam Geller, the Islamophobic, woman who blames everything that happens on Muslims. Of course, she grabs that and just runs with it. And it's just like, these guys they're almost always wrong. The stuff they say is almost always wrong.
Just wait.
Yeah.
Wait and see. Even senators are now saying that in their briefings they're being told they think it's domestic.
Oh, is that right? I had not heard that.
Yeah, I believe so. They really think it's domestic, but I don't know why, and I don't know why they're saying that. And they're saying, they have to treat this site almost like a plane crash site, where they pick up literally everything they can and try to piece it all back together. But I can't believe that with all the video and from surveillance cameras and people's iPhones and everything else, that they won't be able to.
I mean, that may be part of the issue, that there's so much of it that it's just taking time to troll through it. But yeah, I mean, it's I will say it'll be a remarkable thing if it does turn out to be domestic, especially if it turns out to be some right-wing reactionary or whatever, because of course the early reports were all either this guy, the Saudi, or some other dark-skinned guy who was trying to get into a restricted area. And
here's something interesting. There was a guy, the Wall Street Journal reported on this, and I don't think I have it here, alluded to a guy who's now in jail in Texas who was stopped before he set off a pressure cooker bomb, just like the ones they think were used in Boston. And he was a former soldier in Afghanistan. Now, and the bombs are used there quite a bit, exactly like that. So, I mean, you start thinking it could be, also, every newspaper today has a graphic showing exactly how to build one of these things.
I noticed that, too.
Every newspaper.
Yeah.
And here you take the pressure cooker, you glue the ball bearings and shrapnel around the sides, you put your but it's available. Right. I mean, it is available. It could be anything. I think whatever. So we just have to not know. We're so used to information that we're not patient. Horrific. Unbelievable.
One of your readers wrote in and kind of speaking to this point here. I think it was.
Oh
David.
yeah, I think it was here.
No, it was David. I think there.
Right. David said, one gun in Connecticut killed more than 8 times as many people as the 2 bombs in Boston.
Right. And of course, I mean, I think everybody would agree. I mean, the Connecticut tragedy. It's not like people ignored it or anything like that. It's not like it hasn't spawned a. But there's a part. But obviously, we're seeing what's the legislative thing, which frankly was always kind of the least we could have done. What Toomey and oh my God, I lost my thing. What Toomey and Manchin were talking about is the least we could have done,
right?
And we're not going to do it.
We can't even do that.
Whereas if this did turn out to be some Saudi national, we'd probably be bombing Medina or something like that. You know what I mean? Like our willingness to respond to that kind of stuff,
but
versus
not to our own. Just really
what we regard as sort of an acceptable level of
violence
and acceptable forms of violence. It's puzzling, isn't it?
It has to do with the character of this country, and I speak of that in a positive way. We are individuals.
Yeah, I guess.
We are renegades by nature. We are hunters and gatherers. And
not so much gathering.
We hunt.
More hunting.
We love
gathering is communitarian.
That's true.
Yeah.
Gathering is communistic.
All right.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. God, I hate it. I just hate it. Okay. Well, and then there's this ricin that's popped up Target in an envelope.
Yeah.
Geez, haven't heard of that stuff for a while.
Remember there was it reminded me a little bit of how the anthrax thing was like a deal for a while.
Yeah, that never got.
Yeah, I don't think that ever did get solved. I don't think
that
ever did get solved. Yeah.
Did not. So, whatever. I have this thing.
Okay.
About the Supreme Court.
Okay.
Yesterday they heard a case. You might not have. Oh no, I don't want to talk about that. They did hear a case about.
They're funny that way.
Well, it's such a sad case you could die, but it has to do with who should get a child. I mean, they're playing Solomon. There's a little 3-year-old girl who's going to go one way or the other. Horrific. But they were it was a case in which Scalia and Roberts were clearly on opposite sides. Mm. And Roberts, I think, by virtue of being the parent of 2 adoptive children himself. I mean, you see how it's fascinating how personal experience, I don't care how judicial these guys are or how political. Here we have a child, and Justice Roberts has a child, and this child was adopted, and that his child was adopted, and now a father has come from nowhere and wants that child. And the reason the feds are involved is because this child is literally something like 362nd Indian blood.
Native American Indian. Okay,
Native American blood. Less than 1%.
Okay.
And apparently this, by the law, still gives somehow her biological father, even 3 years later,
rights.
Big rights. And it said that all the women justices appeared to be on the side of the father, which doesn't seem like a maternal kind of a thing. But it's very odd case, heartbreaking case. That's not what I wanted to talk about. Scalia, meanwhile, he's a busy guy. So he was speaking to...
I can't wait. Any story that begins with Scalia is going to be a good one.
Oh, he's beyond belief.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's speaking to a group of students, university students.
Uh-huh.
And he was telling them that key provisions of the Voting Rights Act, which is a case they heard last month, maybe?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That key provisions had evolved from an emergency response to racial discrimination way back there in 1965 to now an embedded form of racial preferment. that will continue until the court acts. Okay, so he's saying the Voting Rights Act, is the justice supposed to do this, make so clear their own... I thought they were supposed to be sort of circumspect. I did not think they were supposed to.
That has changed a lot just in the past 10 years, maybe.
But I think he's been the driver of it.
Yeah.
He shows up here, there, at very political events.
Yep.
This is and that's. And
hunting partner of Dick Cheney, if I recall correctly.
They didn't used to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so this Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act, he actually said that he finds it a racial entitlement because it doesn't take a similar interest in protecting the voting rights of white people from racial discrimination. Mm-hmm. Where is there any evidence of white people being discriminated against on voting?
Right.
He also then says he dismissed overwhelming congressional support for Section 5 as, quote, very likely attributable to a phenomenon that is called perpetuation of racial entitlement.
Right, which is what he said in court.
Which he said that in court. And the students clearly were giving him crap.
Yeah.
And he doesn't
Which school was
budge.
it? Was it like Liberty University? Because if he was getting flack from those kids, the pendulums are swinging.
It was the University of California, Washington Center. I don't know
where that is. Yeah.
You do?
No, I don't know. Yeah. Well, I think we talked about this before. I actually thought his remarks in court about that were astounding to me, because what he said was that he went through and he said, okay, when they first voted for this, 30 senators voted against it. And then when they voted to reauthorize 5 years later, whatever, 24 senators voted for it. And then 21 senators. And then, and it got more and more popular each time. And what his argument was is this proves that actually they don't really mean it. So here you've got a guy on the one hand who's saying he believes in separation of powers. They believe in original intent. But he is going to submit his own judgment about what an increasing majority of senators support. And the very fact that more and more senators support it proves that they actually mean it less and less.
You're right, that they really don't.
And that to me was just like, and I'm surprised there hasn't been sort of more outrage about just the sort of complete logical fallacy there. Because that just, to me, just blows up his entire worldview about how you can reconstruct supposedly the original intent of the founders, which is what he's supposed to be doing. He's making this stuff up on the fly as it applies to votes in his own time. So how can we trust anything he says about 200 years ago?
So the students actually were talking to him about his, originalism. He looks at everything supposedly from what the intent of when the amendment was passed or when the founders did this or that. And listen to this. A student suggested that the Constitution similarly should be interpreted to recognize new social phenomena, such as gay relationships, a reference to 2 pending cases, blah, 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 blah. And here's what's going on.
Oh, yeah. Here we go.
I don't consider homosexuality a new phenomenon.
No, that's true.
He said, homosexuality was known when the 14th Amendment, which provides for equal protection of the laws, was ratified in 1868 and was considered a crime. Case closed.
Yeah, right.
Unbelievable. If you went with him, nothing would ever progress.
Yeah.
There'd be no social progress at all.
And the irony of that is you go back, let's go back to the Founding Fathers' intent. You can go to the Jefferson Memorial in Washington, D.C. And Thomas Jefferson, as I recall, had something to do with some of those original documents upon which this country is founded. I recall him having
I think he had a little
somewhat substantial role. And it's carved into the stone. This thing that Jefferson said, and I won't get the wording of it right, but what he said is, it makes as much sense to govern a country by the laws that it's founded on as it does to expect an adult to wear the coat that fit him as a child. the whole genius, to the extent that there was genius of these founders, is that they realized that government is an evolving, and that the laws are an evolving thing. That was the original intent. Change and a living constitution, to use the phrase that Scalia hates. Those were the original intent.
I wonder what he would say to that Jefferson quote.
I don't know. You should go visit it. I've been there. Maybe he's too busy talking to student groups and trolling.
Unbelievable. All right.
Take another break?
You betcha.
All right, you.
That's what we're doing. Be right back.
Stick around for more with Lynn Cullen Live after this.
Go to barkbargains.com for great deals on gift cards from your favorite local restaurants, bars, museums, and shows. This week only, get discounts up to 20% for Red Lobster and Marshall's gift cards. Supplies are limited. barkbargains.com, Pittsburgh's best bargains. barkbargains.com.
It's warming up outside, so get to Little's for all your spring needs. Little's has everything for men, women, and children to stay in style for this upcoming hot summer. Lots of great colors from Dansko, New Balance, Steve Madden, and much, much more. Don't forget to come visit this season's colorful handbag selection as well. Little Shoes, Pittsburgh's largest family shoe store, 5850 Forbes Avenue in Squirrel Hill.
Have a question or an opinion? Call Lynn Cullen at 412-316-3381 or email lynn@pghcitypaper.com. Now, more with Lynn Cullen Live.
All righty, welcome back. Chris Potter is here. So I'm watching, you already got spots in the mayoral race. Advertisements, that would be.
Oh, yeah.
And I have to tell you, I noticed something on Wagner's that so annoys me, and I hear this in other spots. I don't hear it in Peduto's. He goes on to say that, when I was, this happened. When I was, this happened. But there's a weird pronoun shift that goes on. Has it bothered you?
I've noticed it.
Okay, who wouldn't? To me. He says, but he starts with, the one I remember so clearly is when I was president of the city council.
Right. Which he was.
Okay, then he says we. Oh, so maybe he just means city council passed. But then there are other.
No, there are other parts
that don't work like that.
When we went to the Auditor General's office or something like that, or whatever.
When we went to the Auditor General, who the hell? I mean, we all know what that is. That's the royal we. You do not refer to yourself or your actions in this plural way. You're a one. You're an I. And how did that get vetted past all their...
It's an interesting question. He's not the only one who does it. I've heard
it before too, but it's so bizarre.
In this mayoral race, I've noticed Jake Wheatley, who's also running, doesn't have any ads up. I've noticed that in debates and things like that he says that. And I think I don't know this for sure. I have enough problems without questioning people's grammar. I suspect that what it really comes down to is somebody's focus tested it and realized that I statements sound egotistical at a certain point.
And we
sounds like, we've all come together to do these accomplishments together. So that's my guess.
But when the whole sentence is clearly
but it's weird. It's an odd thing.
To say we doesn't make any sense.
It's an odd thing, and it's not just I did very much notice it when I saw the Wagner ads, but in fairness to him, he didn't originate that. That's been going on a while. And like I say, he's not even the only one doing it in this campaign.
Well, I just want to say, it's not just the grammar of it. It's that they might think that people will hear the we and think, oh, he's including me. I hear the we and think you're an egoist.
Yeah, no, it's odd. It's odd. I'm sure that's a sophisticated operation that Jack Wagner's got behind him. So I'm sure it was done deliberately.
Yeah.
I'll say the thing since you brought the mayoral race, the thing that's I'm a little wound up about today is there's a story in the Pittsburgh Tribune Review today. Mr. Wagner met with the editorial board and reporters. And this just strikes me. what he said is part of the problem. There's clearly a failure of leadership involving the mayor's office, obviously. But part of the problem is, Bill Peduto didn't challenge Luke Ravenstall enough on things like why haven't we had why haven't we only had like interim and acting heads of building and bureau of building inspection, which is we haven't had in like 6 years or whatever. So part of the problem too is that Bill Peduto and the people on council haven't challenged him enough on this, and Bill Peduto is so inextricably intertwined with all of these issues that he can't purport to lead the city now. Now, what strikes me about it, that's the thing you're going to say about Bill Peduto. I get it. Bill Peduto is a big boy. I'm sure he's heard it before. He can handle it. And Jack Wagner is running as this outsider who's going to come in and clean up
nonsense about
it. Here's what strikes me about it. The irony is this. Jack Wagner believes that when we have a dysfunctional police department, the answer is to hire preferably from within inside that department. But when it's the whole rest of the city that's dysfunctional, Jack Wagner thinks an outsider, namely himself, is what you need to come in and fix it. And even the person who has been the most vocal opponent of the mayor, even the person who's been the mayor's sharpest critic on issue after issue after issue, so much so that part of your campaign is also talking about how Bill Peduto is a divisive figure. Even that guy is just too intertwined in the dynamic to run the city now. So if Bill, I was tweeting this earlier this morning, if Bill Peduto was not a strong enough foe of Mayor Luke Ravenstall for Jack Wagner's taste, and that's a legitimate argument for him to make, I am very anxious to meet the Pittsburgh of police officer or command level staffer who he thinks was who did enough to offset and to thwart the corruption and the mismanagement that's happening over there. I'd be very interested to see that. To me, it's just an incredible double standard about how you want to evaluate these things. Either of those is a defensible position, but when you put them both together, to me, it just points up how silly it is to say that you have a preference that you hire from within. When the next police chief, and that to me is key, because I just think the issue of police accountability and police management is the single most important issue of this campaign.
And I got to tell you something. I was stunned when he said initially that he wanted to see someone from within the department. I can't think of anyone, a neutral party being told, okay, here's what's going on there, and what would you say their next... I can't imagine any person saying the next chief should come from that pool of that's so got so many troubles in it, and you need somebody obviously from the outside. But that's how you get... Does he have the endorsement of the police?
He does have the endorsement of the FOP.
That's how you get the endorsement.
That's obviously a key part of it. And we should be clear, what he hasn't said that he was absolutely going to do that, but clearly his preference is to hire from within. And we should be very careful about this. This isn't just about Nate Harper. You look at who have been the sharpest critics of the department from within the department. Well, you'd have to say that one of them has been Catherine McNeely, whose husband was the former police chief, and he too was a divisive figure. So let's say, and I doubt this will happen, that you make Catherine McNeely the next chief of police. Well, you've already got a built-in tension. She's been there for years. There are people who don't like her. It's really hard to imagine how you're going to find somebody who is not up to their neck in the bitterness and whatever else is going on in that stuff. So I mean, it's just, granted, I think Peduto himself has not said I definitely won't hire somebody from within. And I think you can make an argument that maybe there's somebody in there, a diamond in the rough, or somebody who we just who hasn't kind of surfaced, who might really be that person. I think you should allow for that possibility. But to say that you have a bias, a preference in favor of hiring from within, when this department, within my career as a journalist, it's just been a running problem. This is not a new thing. It goes back to the Murphy administration. It goes back before Murphy. It goes back to Sophie Masloff. It goes back to Pete Flaherty. These guys, since I've been alive, there have been 2 separate police consent decrees levied against this department, and the problem is when the decrees get lifted, all the same crap seems to start happening
right away. So what do you make, I'm sure I've asked you this before, but really, what do you make of absolutely everybody jumping on Wagner's bandwagon and isolating Peduto. I mean, that could either be something that would lead people to believe that, geez, there really must be something wrong with Bill Peduto if everybody seems to not want him. Or it could be telling you, here's the only guy who's going to shake things up. Because everybody that's been old guard that is part of the establishment here is on one side, and then you got this guy that they say doesn't play well with others, well, yeah, but isn't the public desirous of reform and change?
Right.
And even if Peduto were elected, will he be able to do anything? He'll have a city council against him in all likelihood. He'll have every administrator that remains. I mean,
he'll be able to get rid of those guys.
Yeah, but he'll be like Barack
does.
Obama dealing with Republican Congress. But what do you make of it? Why everybody? I mean, strange bedfellows, as I mentioned. You get a Jim Furlow in bed now with all of these just what passes for Democrats in this town, but aren't.
Right.
These are Republicans and corporatists, and so why do? So
what's going on?
What is it with?
I mean, I think I don't know that it's an either or kind of situation. I mean, clearly, there are a significant number of folks, including say the bureau, the FOP, who have looked at these two candidates and said, we feel our prospects are better with Jack Wagner than they are with Bill Peduto. That doesn't necessarily make Peduto wrong. It doesn't, in a way, even necessarily make the FOP wrong. I mean, they're acting in what they perceive to be the best interest of their people. I mean, I tend to think, I know what you're saying. I mean, the argument is, if all the people who are already ensconced are getting behind Jack Wagner, even though he's running as this outsider, doesn't that really mean he's sort of the inside guy?
How can you possibly say you're an outsider?
Yeah, and I don't think you can at this point. I think
the outsider
right.
is the guy who looks like the insider, the guy in the city council. Peduto.
Well, so let's turn to Peduto. Okay. I mean, part of the argument it was raised most explicitly by City Council Person Darlene Harris when she endorsed Wagner is, Bill Peduto carries a grudge, and I can tell you.
That's true.
That is true. That is true.
So it's a personality issue.
I mean, I think it's both. I mean, all of these politicians, it's not just Bill Peduto. They're all, every politician is also a human being. They all have their own egos. They all have times when they feel like they've gotten betrayed or screwed over, whatever. So, I mean, does Bill Peduto carry a grudge when he feels that he's been done wrong by? Yes. Has that sometimes complicated efforts to get things done? Probably. I'm not necessarily able to read the minds of his fellow people on council or whatever. But that doesn't, there's no such thing as a perfect candidate.
Didn't you think Luke Ravenstahl carried a grudge?
Absolutely, he carried a grudge.
Definitely did.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, that's part of how politics seem to work. Yeah. Unfortunately.
Yes. So I don't
petty personal issues.
I don't think you need to necessarily make, we don't necessarily need to have this perfect figure in the mayor's office. That there hasn't been one, and there probably never will be one. I think you've got to kind of take a look at these things in the broader aspect of it. So that's where I come down to that. I think both things are true. I think very obviously when the FOP gets behind Jack Wagner, you have to assume that the FOP has made a calculation that Jack Wagner is going to do less that their members oppose than maybe Bill Peduto is going to do. And if you think, as I tend to do, that there's some real serious problems with the way the police department is run, you should make a decision accordingly. But that's not to say that Bill Peduto doesn't sometimes carry a grudge, because he does.
Okay. Do you give Peduto, how can Peduto win? I mean, I get the sense that everybody, so the East End goes for Peduto big time. And then the rest of the city doesn't. I mean, how do you win? Can he win by really getting younger people out? Because this is a primary in the spring,
and a lot of the college kids, for example, who turned out big for Obama,
they're gone.
Are not going to be around. And there was an article in the Pitt News yesterday or the day before, urging students to vote by absentee ballot and to vote for Peduto. So we'll see. I don't know. It's tricky, and one of the things, and I've written about this just online. I mean, one of the things that makes the race tricky for him is that when you look at this polling data, even if any individual poll may be kind of questionable, there's an overall trend, which is that Bill Peduto really hasn't been able to crack 35%. And when you figure that there's a diehard base that he has that was probably 25 to 30% to start with, you do kind of wonder why he hasn't been, where the traction is.
But there's a lot of undecided.
There are a lot of undecideds, and so that's what he's got to do. And he's got to, this ad that he put out, I thought was a good introductory ad, and I thought, for the most part, Wagner, some grammatical questions notwithstanding, was also a good ad. But I think the black vote is potentially very key, and we may see some interesting developments coming up this weekend.
Okay, so is that when this group is going to make its this umbrella group is going to
the candidates will be speaking. This is now I'm going to blank on the name, but the Black Political Alliance or something. It's an effort to get all these candidates together to respond to what they've said is the black agenda, which involves a whole slew of issues involving police accountability for one, involving economic issues, to get them to weigh in on that stuff. And then on this coming Saturday, people who are registered voters will be able to come and to vote according to their preference, and that'll sort of be the endorsement of that organization. The problem for Peduto, really from an electoral standpoint, is this. He was in really good shape a month or so ago when there were 5 or 6 candidates in this thing. Yeah. Because he had that 25%, and all he really needed to get was 30 to 35% to win, mathematically. The problem now is this is rapidly narrowing down into a 2-person race with Jake Wheatley out there, and Peduto, I suspect, is going to need as many black votes as he can get. And so the fact that the only other candidate in this race is a black office holder from the Hill District, probably makes that a little harder. So Peduto's got an uphill climb. But as you say, there's a lot of undecided votes out there. And if he can kind of close the deal and really connect with them, I will definitely say, to Peduto's credit, he's tried not to just be that East End candidate.
Is it conceivable that this consortium, this umbrella group of black organizations, would vote not for Wheatley, but in fact for Peduto or Wagner?
Yes.
There is?
Yes.
And you in fact think that is what's going to happen?
I don't know, but it's possible.
And of the two whites, which one would they go for?
I don't know.
They'd go for Peduto.
I don't know.
Because
I wouldn't do that assumption.
But then why, if they care so much about reform of the police, why would they go with the candidate who says he's gonna keep?
Let me put it this way to you. This endorsement vote is going to be like any other election in the sense that it will be determined by who does the best job of turning out their people.
Okay.
So does that necessarily mean that so is it representative of the black community as a whole? I don't know that anybody's really equipped to say that. I'm just saying that what happens on Saturday. Look, Jack Wagner did not do particularly well when he ran for governor in 2010. I went through and I looked. He did not do particularly well in a lot of the black wards and black districts of the city. In fact, in a lot of those places, he finished 3rd. He finished not only behind Dan Honorado, who of course won the Democratic primary, he also finished behind Anthony Hardy Williams, who's a black state senator from Philadelphia. So, not a terribly impressive showing. But on the other hand, Peduto's never really done all that well in black districts either. So, how it all shakes out, I don't know. But for Peduto, even if this thing gets behind Wheatley instead of Wagner, it doesn't help him.
No.
Peduto is really going to need the black vote, and he obviously really needs a lot of those undecideds.
All right. How far away are we from the election?
It's the 21st of May, I think, if that's the Tuesday.
Okay, so it's pretty much a month away.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Always good to be here.
Always good to pick your brain. Thank you. Chris Pata. Tomorrow, I'm Sokolowski-less. So it's just you and me, baby. Okay? I'll look forward to it.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.